So I just finished watching the first episode of White Lotus season 1. Yes, people. I am late to the party, but it did get the second highest votes when I asked my viewers what shows you would like for me to make videos on as I'm watching them. And whilst I have so far done content for The Expanse and How I Met Your Mother, there's a playlist for each of them if you're interested, I'm only just getting around to starting White Lotus. And I have to say, the first episode was confusing as hell for me. But I did walk away with one thought in my head, and that is the fact that so far, this season, at least with how it's been introduced within the first episode, seems to be focused on the mask people wear, what they try to hide behind them, and the cracks that will start to show and threaten to break the facade. And this applies broadly across the characters we've been introduced to, right? Both the guests and the resort staff, and I would like to talk about that. Because whilst a lot of people would have their focus be on the fact that we start with the cold open, that is us being notified that someone was killed at the White Lotus, and I'm sure many mystery pundits immediately started thinking about who the killer could possibly be and who is a victim, because sure, the show wants us to think it's Shane's wife, but I have my suspicions that is just a red herring and it is most likely someone else. My attention, however, was caught instead on the character of Shane Patton and his interaction with the couple who were waiting at the same airport lobby he was at to board the very same plane. To them, they were attempting to be nice by showing interest in how Shane's vacation possibly went, sans murder, an extension of the civility that is to be expected in an interaction with equals. But Shane has lost the mask at this point. There is no attempt at cordiality when he realizes that all they will do is keep asking intrusive questions, and so he shuts that down immediately. And when I got to the end of the episode, I immediately flashed back to this exact moment at the start of it and came to the conclusion that what we are probably going to get throughout the entirety of the White Lotus season 1 is the slow chipping away of everybody's mask, Shane's inclusive, to show who they really truly are underneath it all, without the pretense or the lies or the diversions. And we start to see it with the character of Lani, who is at the White Lotus on her first day, working as a trainee to greet their new guests. The instruction she receives from her manager, Amond, is to hide behind a mask, be generic to the point of being almost invisible in the eyes of the guests so that their idea of paradise is not intruded upon by the natives like Lani, who in this case exists to serve but never truly be seen except when it is beneficial to said guests. I don't think it's anything but a conscientious choice that the show has the White Lotus situated in Hawaii, an island where its inhabitants have been quite vocal about the damage that tourists do to their island and how the influx of tourists continues to affect and lower their standard of living, which in turn has them further indebted to said tourists, meaning that there has to be a continued facade of civility in the face of it all. The show is not subtle about it at all, especially as it pertains to Lani. Plus, there is something about that type of othering that goes on within the hospitality industry. I mean, just ask anyone who's worked at a spa or hotel. They will tell you that Amon's words are actually quite spot on with the training that they receive. But as I was saying, there is something about that type of othering that makes your needs and identity secondary, and you find yourself being subsumed into the version of what the guests require of you at all times, even when it is most inconvenient for you, because it is also tied to your survival. And you cannot let it show, hence the mask has to be front and center. That Lani is in labor at the start of the episode and tries to hold it in and bear it, whilst at the same time having to be civil to Tanya McCoy's request to help her find her late mother's ashes, speaks to that fact. That she can't be upfront with her manager about it because she needs the job and it's her first day further confirms that. That she had maintained the mask long enough and Armand had learned to not look beyond it to actually go into labor without him being remotely aware of it is yet another way to prove that. And her labor, the birthing that she can't hide, is what breaks that mask, but only before Amond and the rest of the resort staff. Because, as at the end of the episode, the guests continue to be blissfully unaware. That mask is still in place. Then there is Shane's obsession with maintaining the appearance of a wealthy heir who is on his honeymoon and who is upset that that pinnacle of indulgence and wealth and money that having the most expensive suite, the honeymoon suite, would have given to him and his new bride was taken away from him due to the resort manager's error and mismanagement, and he can't move beyond that. That reaction keeps bleeding through the mask of civility and propriety that he keeps trying to maintain and failing at, slowly revealing himself to be the petty, petulant child that he actually is. And Rachel's off-the-cuff comments where she keeps trying to unmask her new husband as being nothing but the heir to a fortune that isn't really his, as he hasn't done anything to actually earn it, is such an interesting dynamic between them. Because whilst he is on one hand constantly pushing this narrative of wealth and power that he expects to come with his position, she, on the other hand, seems to resent that because of how vastly different their lives are and what it says about her and her relationship with him that he married her. In her interactions with the teenagers, Olivia and Paula, we see that she's wary of being seen as a gold digger. That isn't an identity she wants slapped onto herself. It isn't how she wants to be perceived. And yet, the circumstances would not read her as anything but. And so it feels like her constant attempt at stripping Shane of the airs he keeps putting on is to ground herself, but in a way that also manages his ego, because doing both is important to their marriage based off of who he is, and she has to maintain the appearance of that. And speaking of Olivia and Paula, they too have their mask on that gives them this elevated position where they get to look down on others, make snap judgments, and keep themselves from being truly seen. Because there's something so performative about reading Nietzsche and Freud by the pool whilst you're judging everyone around you with a psychoanalytical lens that has been proven to be false, that is just meant to hint at how truly young and impressionable Olivia and Paula are, even though they act and project like they aren't. Or maybe I'm just reading too much into that, and they really are two teenage girls, college sophomores, who find philosophical texts as light reading suited for the poolside. Plus, I found it interesting that when Olivia and Paula noticed that the resort staff member who they thought was hot was looking at them, and Olivia excuses herself so that Paula can spend time with the guy, Paula immediately denies that ever happening when Olivia asks her how her night went the very next day. Because to me, it was yet another way for Paula to perform like she wasn't affected by the guy and he was someone so insignificant that she had forgotten all about him by the next day. Either that or something happened with him that she can't bring herself to tell her best friend about, which either way still shows just how much of a pretense she has going on in her interactions with Olivia in that moment. Just something to note. Then there's Mark Mosbacher, who is terrified at the possibility of having testicular cancer, whilst at the same time hiding the possibility of it from his kids, specifically his son Quinn. And the fractures we can start to see in his marriage to his wife, Nicole, who is more the type A girl boss persona, highly successful, who thinks quite frankly that her husband is worrying about something that might not turn out to be as terrible as he believes. But we can read that Mark doesn't really hold much weight with her full concern, as he believes that she doesn't really care as much about that and would rather nothing rock the boat, which, to be fair, a cancer diagnosis most likely would, and Nicole doesn't want anybody knowing about that. And of course, there's Tanya McCoy, who in our first meeting with her is focused on getting her massage and is initially blind to the presence of Belinda. I mean, Mond has to mention that she's right behind her several times before she finally notices. And sure, that scene was probably played for a bit of comedy in that regard. Jennifer Coolidge is a fantastic actress and she does the absent-minded, head occupied with other thoughts and not really their routine very well. But at the same time, I did read it as her not really factoring anything outside of the grief and what she's feeling at the moment as being the most important. until she has a session with Belinda, who ends up giving Tanya what we are meant to read as a new lease on life, helping her practically reach nirvana in their session, which meant that Tanya now only sees Belinda and expects a connection with her based on their shared experience, ignoring the fact that Belinda was just doing her job. And I think that keeping in mind the fact that Belinda was just doing her job is very important. Because Belinda still has the mask of her professionalism on, whilst Tanya is convinced that they've had a moment of mutual shared vulnerability, which can't actually happen when it is with someone who is being paid to offer you a service. But Tanya doesn't really notice that because, once again, all she's seen is the smiling, kind of soft-spoken mask of Belinda, and she's working with the assumption that that is who Belinda is. I wonder if she wouldn't start demanding that of her on a more consistent basis based off of the financial interactions that they've had. And what toll that would then place on Belinda's mask, because on one hand, she has to navigate being a professional and not cussing out a client. And on the other hand, she has to navigate a client who doesn't respect boundaries and, by virtue of the type of industry they are in, has grown accustomed to a certain type of treatment regardless. It will be very interesting to see if the gloves come off and how things change as a result. But that is, of course, just me and my opinion. Like I said, I am just starting the White Lotus. And if my thoughts are all jumbled and all over the place, please note that it is because this first episode really was strange to me. Because I'm still undecided if we are meant to find the show hilarious or disturbing or a bit of both. I would, of course, as always, love to hear your thoughts. Please drop and share them in the comments. Be mindful of spoilers, of course. Like this video if you've watched this far and haven't done so yet. Share this if you want. Support me on Patreon if you can. If you can't, however, do consider checking out my other channels. One of them is my gaming channel and the other one holds my ASMR content. I will have both linked in the description bar if they sound like something you could potentially be interested in. Whichever the case may be, however, I will see you on Monday with a new video. Until then, do remember, obsessing over the things you love, perfectly valid coping mechanism.